I'm Reverend Phil, and I'm your host for Words of the Prophets. Where are our prophets now? Where are those messages God chooses to communicate divine revelation through? In the past, the Creator has sent prophets like Abraham, Siddhartha, Jesus, Muhammad, and many more. Maybe our higher power has switched tactics since we reinterpret God's words as soon as the Creator's prophets leave us. Could it be that Spirit talks to each one of us individually and we haven't learned to listen? On Words of the Prophets, our modern prophets show us how to find the internal prophet that is the I Am, and we discuss the application of spiritual principles in all aspects of our lives. Love and light, everybody. I'm Reverend Phil, and I'm your host for Words of the Prophets. Today, my guest is Dr. Merlinda Pillsbury Arnold, who is a doctor of divinity, a spiritual counselor, and a healer. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
It's going to be even better when we do something. Okay, so today's prophetic topic is a journey back to our hearts. Our topic can be found in the third paragraph on Dr. Arnold's website. The complete paragraph reads as follows. The SaRa Technique is a journey back to our hearts. In the heart, we shed the armor that separates us from our true selves, each other, and the divine. Here we discover and join together the parts of ourselves that have been lost. It is my experience that the divine masculine and the divine feminine comes together in a union that transcends duality and births in the Hierogamos, the sacred marriage. So we're going to be talking about the journey back to oneness, the journey back to wholeness. But before we even start that, why don't you spend a little bit of time introducing yourself to the viewers, who you are, what you do, how you got to where you are.
Okay.
Whatever you think is significant.
Well, the journey has been really full of synchronicities, and there's a couple of things that really got me on the journey, and actually one was being called to go to Fatima in Portugal, and I went. I think I was like 35 or something like that, and I helped a group of big families, Catholic families, go, and had an experience with the Lady of Fatima, and stayed at a convent. And I wasn't into the Divine Mother or anything like that. It was just so out of the blue. But I had a real experience where she came into my little cell in the convent on the grounds of Fatima, and we started merging. And that was the beginning. And she also told me I was going to have another child, which 16 years later, from my first child, 16 years later, I had another child. It was a very fascinating experience, and one that really got me deeply into the divine feminine and her sacred heart, the Divine Mother's sacred heart.
How long did this merging last? Were you aware of time?
Actually, no, I really wasn't aware of time. She would come in the middle of the night, and she would say, "Let's merge. Let's come together."
So there was more than one visitation.
Oh yeah, it went on for a week, definitely a week.
And did she impart information to you during that time?
Yeah, she did. She basically, it was all about boosting my motherhood and my own divine feminine. And like I said, she told me that I was going to have another child. She told me that that the divine feminine and the sacred heart really needed attention for people in the world, and that it was all centered around the heart. She also came out of a tree, which is, I found out later, she appeared to the children from coming out of this beautiful tree. It's now been basically cut down in the square of Fatima. You can see the stump, but she appeared out of the tree and talked to the children. So it was a very deep experience for me in connecting to the divine feminine. I grew up a Congregationalist in New England, and it was all about the father, you know, and so this was around the feminine.
And was this before or after you had your doctorate?
This was before. This
So-
was before.
So this kind of spurred you on to do that?
Well, it was an awakening that I could be connected to the divine feminine, to the Great Mother, to Isis, to the gods and goddesses, especially the goddesses. I hadn't even thought about that, but yes, it spurred me on to go back to school and get a master's in counseling, and then it spurred me on to get a PhD work in Jungian psychology and mythological studies, and then a doctorate in divinity. Yes.
Did she impart bigger scale information to you, or was it just personal information to you?
No, it was very cosmic, actually, information that she imparted. And one of the things that she went over with me was, I don't know if you're familiar with the story, and like I said today, May 13th is the first day that she appeared to the children. But on
certain divine synchronicity?
I know, isn't that amazing? And actually the nuns gave me this rooster on my birthday at the convent there, and the rooster is very significant to Portugal. But her larger scale was about the heart, people not coming from the heart, people needing to come more from the heart, and especially towards the feminine. And then in October, the children were told that there was going to be an event that she was going to do. This is, I believe it's 1919 in Portugal, in Fatima, where this occurred, and told people to come. And so they had a couple of months to get there. 72,000 people showed up on the grounds of Fatima in 1919, October 13th. And she demonstrated to these 72,000 people the sun. And the sun started coming down through where it is, and it started coming closer and closer and closer to the people, and they thought it was going to be the end of the world. I mean, they're screaming and everything. And then she lifted the sun up, and then rain came, and then the sun came again. There was this whole event that took place, and 72,000 people witnessed it. And her warning was that if people keep refusing to keep their heart sealed, then the world was going to be in trepidation, and that everything works on a natural cycle, the celestial, the terrestrial working together, and with an open heart. And so her plea was coming from the heart, doing the rosary, praying for other people, praying for world peace, that was her message. And I find it interesting that today is,
Yes. So let's keep the story going for a little bit. What happened after that? You went to school, you've got your...
So after that, another major synchronicities happened to me. I was doing a doctorate program, a PhD program, and I had just done a master's, and serendipitously I was told to meet this archaeologist in Connecticut. He was the head archaeologist at Vassar. He had a major dig in Egypt. His name was Walter Fairsurface, and through synchronicity I was led to him, he and his wife, in Connecticut. And I ended up with these manuscripts from Egypt, written by a woman named Om Seti. very famous folk heroine, actually, modern day folk heroine in Egypt. And she was a renowned, not just Egyptologist, but she had experiences that took her into other realms. And
what was the time frame for her?
she died in 1982 in Abydos in Egypt, which is one of the major centers of early Egyptian, Renaissance art. It's where the Assyrian is, which is about 10,000 to 15,000 years old, the sunken water temple. It's where the flower of life is. It's where the temple of Seti is. And so she spent 35 years in Egypt and recreating what the real pyramid texts were about. They were the early texts called before Zep-Tepi, which is the first time. And they were chronolized on walls. And so they were like pictographs. And so she knew that she lived in Egypt, and she was a priestess of Isis in the Temple of Seti. And so she showed archaeologists where to dig in the 50s, and they dug. She's never been wrong.
Did she talk about the history of all this information coming into Egypt?
Coming in?
Yeah. How did, I mean, it didn't originate in Egypt. It was, my understanding was it was brought there, and I was wondering what she had to say about that.
Well, in its 500 and some odd pages were the manuscripts that I received from Walter Fairservice and his wife that she had written. And so there were parts in there that dealt with, it dealt mostly with the spells, that healing spells and physical things that the Egyptians did, to heal the body. And then it dealt a lot with the afterlife. It dealt with bringing your Merkaba, which is the ancient Egyptian word. Mer in ancient Egyptian means heart's desire. Ka, the Ka is your body spirit, why you have a spirit in this body now. But the Egyptians also believed that there was another spirit, that there were two spirits, and that it was the sign of the Ka, I choose life. And so the other Ka, your higher self, could come into you if you had the heart's desire. And then the Ba was always depicted as a bird, and that was your soul. So it was about bringing your Merkaba together that she dealt a lot with. And this, of course, goes with the SaRa, the SaRa Technique, with what I do. A lot of this information for the early Egyptians have been translated by me into the practice that I do.
So let's go back to the unification for a second. Are we looking at basically a technique that raises the lower self into the higher self?
Absolutely.
And that was the function of the early society and what they were geared for?
Yes, absolutely what they were geared for. I mean, she as well as myself, really revere Isis, the goddess Isis, and her sister Nephris, and Sekhmet is the lion goddess, and they all had consorts. They all had, and Mot, the goddess Mot, the goddess of truth and of love. And she's the original justice system, actually, comes from Mot, and her consort was Thoth, the scribe that would write down what was in the highest good for all. So these gods and goddesses, I'm getting to answer your question, but these gods and goddesses, yes, I mean, I personally feel that they came from, they're really who we are. They're not like alien to us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe. I believe they are who we are.
I mean, the nature of that question was, and you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We had coffee. A lot of the Edgar Cayce readings deal with the transporting of the Atlantean information and knowledge into Egypt. And he has this whole, and I don't want to get into the whole cosmology, but there was this aspect of divine spirits coming into human bodies as playthings and creating all kinds of, all these half human, half animal myths we have. According to Cayce, that was something that we as spiritual beings, when we were created, just like with children with power, didn't know how to use it. That there was this 3 stages of dysfunction. The first was playing with the existing beings that the divine created. Then it was about creating their own beings. And then the third was merging themselves with those beings. And when they got merged, they got trapped. And so getting to what you were talking about, this healing of the higher and the lower.
Right.
According to Cayce's information, that was the function of the pyramid, that the pyramid was to take these beings who had a lower self and a higher self, so to speak, and help heal the lower self and bring the higher self forward to prominence. And it sounds exactly like what you're talking about.
Yeah, it really does. And so, yes, it does. And so these divine spirits that came in, or these, did Cayce talk about why they came, or?
It was, I mean, they came into these bodies as playthings. They just got tired. It was like, first we're playing with what we had. Well, we didn't like that, so we created something that was the abnormal. And then the final was, well, that's still not enough fun. Let's get inside them and really get the experience. But they didn't realize they were going to get trapped.
Right.
And as Cayce talks about it, that was the beginning of this whole process of karma, reincarnation, learning how not to act on self-will, not to listen to self-will, to listen to the divine will.
Ah.
And that was the start of that process, because we were given all this power, and we're going far afield here, but
no, this is
what basically Cayce said was God created all the souls because in God's infinite knowledge and wisdom would not be complete, would not have the ability to grow by itself.
Right.
So God created all these companions in diversity so that God will have something to, that diversity to grow with, basically.
Right.
But when given the power, given free will, they got carried away with it.
Right.
So there was all these beings on the planet that they started to play with like puppets. And then they said, well, that's no fun. Let's create, these half-human, mermaids and the centaurs and all those other creatures, mythological creatures that were half and half were those creations. But then there came a point where that wasn't enough. It was like a good addict, and they just needed more and more. And they decided, we're going to enter these forms, thinking they can get back out anytime they want. But when they entered the physical form, they got trapped.
Right.
And so the process of reincarnation and karma was put into being at that point. But part of the early process was, how do we physically heal these people? And that was done through the pyramid. And that the pyramid was like a temple. There was a temple of healing and there was a temple of knowledge. 2 separate pyramids. And Cayce puts that time frame twice or more than what the current Egyptologists placed them in, which kind of coincided with the final destruction of Atlantis. There were 3 kind of breakups. The final one happened, close to that time frame, and a lot of people, a lot of them, migrated, so to speak, to Egypt, and that's where that culture started to grow, so unbelievably, because all that technology, like how to build the pyramids, was
incredible technology.
And it wasn't done with labor, like everybody says. They're trying to,
done with what?
It wasn't done with that huge amounts of labor and the pulleys and the
it was
rollers.
Done with sound.
It was done with sound. It was done with mental, just telepathy and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And all that stuff was just lost a long time. But we are so, in so many ways, chauvinistic. We can't possibly wrap our brain around somebody who lived 10, 15,000 years ago knowing more than we know.
Well, to me, their technology was incredible, but their wisdom as far as opening the heart and then the other energy seals and the different sound spells and vibration that they had to use to bring people into balance, like the goddess Mot was the goddess who, she was the one who said, what is in the good of all? It's about, true justice.
The oneness.
Like the Grail King,
Yes.
Later in the story of Percival. It's what is in the good for all, not what is in the good for I or me. It's what is in the good for all. And Thoth, the god of the scribe, started scribing these spells and how to really create a civilization. If you want to get back to the early origins of Egypt, it's back to a balanced male, Isis, Osiris, who is, Isis was intuition and wisdom and healing, and Osiris was the god who brought civilization. And then through their divine child, the dancing child in the heart is, through their merging of the sacred marriage, is Horus, the divine child. And he's always depicted as a bird, usually depicted as he's depicted as a falcon. And so falcons are the ones that see as far, 220 miles a falcon can see. So the perception of Horus, the divine child, is that he has a much higher perspective of this merging.
Mm-hmm. So let's get into this merging. We've gone afield and come back again. You wanted to talk about the world tree, the symbology of it, and I think that's an important concept to have to give to the viewers, if you want to.
Right. Well, the world tree, to me, the axis mundi was something that was created and revered in just about every culture on the planet at one time. And like here in Santa Fe, like the plaza, we have the plaza. Well, instead of a concrete obelisk, which is, basically a phallic symbol, it was the tree. And so the tree was representative of, what takes place on the earth, and the roots go up through the tree trunk, and the branches have a place to communicate with the other world or higher worlds, the celestial world. And the roots, and the cave and the roots underneath is the feminine. It's very chthonic. It's a place where, transformation can happen, like a womb. And then the stem of the tree is the masculine, that bringing the creative energy and the force. So it's those merging that creates our connection. The ancients were always concerned and revered the connection with the celestial, with the terrestrial, through us, that there was a balance. It wasn't, the heavens weren't separate. They were, they were part of our natural rhythm. And so what takes place on the terrestrial is also mirrored and taking place on the celestial. And so I feel the world tree, or, trees in particular, the tree spirit is a very good shamanistic tool to use to get in balance again.
And this is something that we've replicated in a lot of religions, from the Bodhi tree,
right,
to the cross, to Jacob's ladder. I mean, that this symbology just kept rolling
right.
forward, slightly changed, slightly modified, given a different name, but the unification of the higher and the lower,
and the connection,
yes,
to the other world, it's the major connection, that if you're doing a giveaway, the Native Americans have a giveaway, so that you take the giveaway and you give it to the tree will take it up through the roots, through the trunk, out through the branches, and in the wind they take it, they blow it. And so it's like you're utilizing the natural rhythms of nature, as well. And this, this was my doctorate, was the natural, it was creation spirituality with Matthew Fox, revering, and honoring the natural rhythms of nature, birth, growth, death, creativity that comes from death and silence, and from creativity to transformation.
That sounds very much like the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying.
Yes.
That whole cycle again.
Right.
Yeah, they all teaches the same thing, just slightly different language. And that's where we find the oneness. That's part of
right.
what we do. I do at this show.
Right, the oneness.
I mean, the oneness, the feminine, with the unification. This message, I've been on this air for, almost 4 years, and
right.
it's trying to bring that consistent message out there that we have to start looking at things a little bit differently. That we can't see it from me, it's us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The collective consciousness, and bringing not just myself or my family or my clients into this collective awareness of, from the unconscious patterns and behaviors that run us to a consciousness, you see, because we are a collective. Humanity is a collective here. And so, the more we can make it, conscious, the better it is.
And that's the concept of a collective karma, that we meet ourselves as a group, not just the individual karma,
right.
not the day-to-day karma, but we come
right.
in here to experience these things. Do we find ourselves honoring the planet we live on? If not, we get all these natural disasters and keep showing us, what are we doing?
Right.
And that's all part of the collective. The collective experiences it, and then we get to choose, what do we do?
Well, that's it, and to me, this is, part of it is about the, I do a thing with looking at people's lineages and ancestry to see. I usually go back 3 generations if we can, and see, what are the patterns in the ancestry that create that, you don't even know you're doing. It's an unconscious pattern that is, not necessarily what you want, and then, changing it. I feel war is a very, war, passive aggressive or whatever, I think those are, I call them miasms, and those are patterns and behaviors that are just carried through generations, and basically and part of the collective unconscious, and we can actually shift it if we want. We can look at the unity between nations. We can look at the unity between cultures. We can look at the unity between religions instead of looking and
That requires us to get past our lower selves.
That's right.
Yes, that's the challenge. And that's the decision we each make on an ongoing basis.
That's right, we do.
You know, the basic question our lives is, how's it working for you?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
do you like what's happening? Do you like what you're feeling? Do you like what you're seeing? You know, you got the power to change it. We don't have to just be swept along.
Right.
That just doesn't, you know, that doesn't serve us, and it doesn't go, you know, I mean, we have the power. We just got to learn how to use it.
We do. We have that creative power.
Yes, let's bring this back to the technique.
Okay.
Because we're wanting to do a demonstration soon, and we're running out of time because we're talking so much.
Okay.
Let's talk about the SaRa Technique.
Yeah.
You started mentioning some of it. You talked about seals. You talked about a couple of different things.
Right. So the seals, through the ancient Egyptian healing techniques that Om Seti, and certainly in the pyramid texts and in the papyrus of Ani, which is another major papyrus, talks about how to bring things back into balance and to open up the seal to the heart. There was a point in time where the hearts were sealed. Explain
that. I mean, we're not talking about, pardon the expression, like a chastity belt. We're talking about actually a willingness to close it down. It was self-imposed as opposed to imposed externally.
Yeah, they're hermetically,
yes,
you know, sealed. And so, and it was about protection, I believe. This is my belief, that, you know, there was a time when you were journeying, and this is again in the Book of the Dead and the Book of Gates in Egypt, as well as Tibetan.
Yeah.
You know, you had to protect your heart because there were, you know, there were forces out there that could take your heart, and if they took your heart, you know, when you were transferring over into, you know, the spirit world, then that is your memory. You see, the heart is a seat of your memory.
Are we talking now a physical heart or a heart chakra?
A heart chakra.
Okay,
yeah.
Just clarifying that for
right,
everybody.
Right, a heart chakra. And so you know, so basically what the Egyptians are saying is that you don't have to die now in order to reconnect with your heart. It's time now to open up your heart. It's time now to bring your body spirits, the Kas, together, and it's time to become, you know, the Ba, which is you can go through different interdimensional places. You can time travel. You can, you know, we have that capability. Basically, is what the early Egyptians were saying, and so through these healing techniques, the SaRa technique. Sa is the ancient Sumerian word for protection. It is the glue. It is the love. It is the protection. And Ra is the light. Later, the Egyptians said Ra was the sun and the central sun, right? Which kind of goes back to Fatima. But anyway, yeah. So the SaRa is the protection and the love of the light.
And the protection is really just a belief and trust in it.
Right. Absolutely.
So that I am only, if I close myself down out of fear, it's the fear that's causing it, nothing else.
That's right.
So it's not what's external, it's how I interpret it, define it, what my perceptions are of it.
Exactly, which is the Mer, heart's desire. If you have the heart's desire, you see, to be the light. You know, Einstein talks a lot about light. I mean, you know, light is, it is a choice.
So we then have this technique, you have this technique, I shouldn't say we, that helps basically nudge somebody through that fear of, I need protection.
Right. And one of my favorite sayings in the Course of Miracles that kind of sums it up is, in my defenselessness, my safety lies.
Yes, exactly.
And that it's very you know, people think, oh my God, I have to be, I have to defend myself. But really, there really isn't anything that you need to defend yourself about. In my defenselessness, my safety lies.
We had set aside a block of time to do this demonstration.
Mm-hmm.
We've used up most. Remember I said to you, this never goes to what we planned.
Right, yes.
Can we do a short demonstration?
Sure, yeah.
We're ready to do that. You want to explain what's going to happen while you have somebody with you who's going to be your...
Yes.
Okay.
And I can just go along and explain it as I'm doing it. This is the first of the SaRa. There are 3 different SaRa sessions that I recommend. The second and third, I use the tuning forks and the sound. But yeah, so here's Fernando. Thank you. So what I do in the beginning is, I do a prayer, and I actually, to open up the palms, we do the universal energy of the Ankh, the male and female, the Ankh, the universal energy of life, and then say some Egyptian words, Sa, Sekhem, Sahu, and then put it up to the sun to open up the energy of the palms or the light,
So we're basically talking about the secondary chakras.
Yeah. Secondary?
Well, not the main 7, but the secondary minor chakras in the bottom of the feet, the palms of the hands.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And also the opening up the energy center, the healing center of your palms, so that, when I work on Fernando, it's transmitted.
Do your hands get hot?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so what I do now is I go around and I ask the client, I say, are you ready to have the seals to your heart removed?
I am.
Great. Great. So be it. So he is. It's his willingness, and I say to the client, the only thing you really have to do, there is no protocol here, is just relax. Because the more relaxed he is, the more the healing energy can happen.
Tension blocks the flow.
Right. So, just relaxing and, so I start with the head. And I use a lot of, which the Egyptians did too, a lot of what is known as polarity and cranial sacrum to relax the client. And so it's a hold here, and the occiput, and then we go to, just relax, and then we go to opening up the sound vibration, and so opening up the inner ear, and we do the inner ear. Wow, great. And it's very interesting what happens, I would say 99% of the time, is that, because we call in, which I didn't do right now, but we call in his ancestors that work only in his highest good, his higher self, the beings of light, the Devic energies. We do all that. And more times than not, usually an ancestor or a loved one comes into the session. And it's been really amazing. It's really how thin the veils are. to help facilitate the healing.
Okay.
So this is opening up the crown. So the first session is basically, opening up, like we're going to open up the third eye. Now the fingers go into the different elements, so as well as the toes, so that we're moving the 5 different elements. So down here, this is the ether, this is air, this is fire, this is water, this is earth. The same for my hands. So when we're doing this, I'm going to decide, okay, I think I'm going to use the air for his third eye, and I'm going to start opening up the energy in the solar plexus. And with this work, the more you can stay actually off the body. Like if you look at the pictures in Egypt, you will see Isis and Osiris. She's always like this. She's never touching. And neither is her sister Nephris. It's always about off the body. And it seems to have more of a power than...
That's interesting because there are so many energetic healing techniques that all teach the same thing.
Oh, this is good. And you can tell, now I can tell the heat when the chakra is opening. And his heart chakra is really opening. It's so great. And so this is when you can really start, moving on and going to the other chakras, because you really want to move the energy. You want to start opening. The first session is about opening up all the different energy centers here. How you doing?
I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, your heart chakra is amazing. So then, this is the solar plexus, and then we go from the third eye to the other chakras. And of course, the first session is at least an hour. And then, get the whole body, do the hands, the fingers, move that, and then move the energy. We really want to bring it down. Wow. I think your mother is here, Fernando. I'm pretty sure. What's her name?
Norma.
Ah. So we call in your ancestor, your guides, your angels, your higher self, all the beings that work only in your highest good. We ask to be present here. Welcome. Welcome. And so I spent a lot of time on the feet. Because the feet have so many nerves and they're so connected to the whole part of the body. And so this is what
Is the feet the equivalent of the root system?
It is. Absolutely. And so, we want to I want to start seeing what it's like opening up these different energy centers, the ether, now the air, the not water, I'm sorry, fire. Then water. And the whole time, I have a certification program that people have done, and you want to, one of the keys to this work is about really getting in rhythm and harmonics with the client. And so it's about my heart opening and being in tune with the heart of the client. So, and then just visualizing the energy centers moving. Another important thing in doing this is it's called cross work. And so, you know, you want to really activate, which his heart is incredibly activated. It's very, very warm. But you want to activate what I call this cross energy work with the different elements. And so, you know, a lot of times it's about connecting, like say, okay, he needs a little fire. You can tell when you do the fire is not as strong. So I'll use my fire finger and I'll go to his fire finger and I'll start connecting in a crossway, and it seems to have an incredible effect. You know, if it's just amazing how intention and subtleness can be so powerful.
Intention creates our reality.
Right. Right. It does. And so I'm going to just do, because I don't want to leave him. And like I said, you know, we usually get into this very deep space of light. I don't know how else to say it. No. But the intention here is really, you know, bringing down that energy, bringing down the energy. Now the heart is open, and so it's really opening up the different chakras. You want to continue to bring down the energy. You want to work the energy in the energy centers. Anything that, you know, is not needed or wanted, you know, you want to let it go. You want to release it. And then really at the end, because I think we have to just wrap up here a little bit.
Yeah, we're running down.
Yeah, okay. So just to close and to make sure that he's, now I'm not closing anything off, I'm just, this is like a bubble of protection and, not protection, but basically light. So, and then end with the feet. All right. Okay. So how are you? You want to sit up or take your time? 'Cause
He didn't want this to end.
No, not at all.
so.
Well, it's a bit of a meditative state. It's a bit of almost hypnosis. There are definite areas in the body that become stimulated. It's almost a state of euphoria. This is just an abridged version.
Right.
So when some of the processes that we've been through have been extensive, and I'm always looking about the relationship
Right.
of things and removing blocks, getting to my art, that whole thing.
Yeah,
And,
oh, by the way, this is one of his pieces. This.
The one's been sitting behind us.
Yes.
So staying in the clear so I can channel energy into the artwork is important, and this has been a very fascinating experience, moving energies around.
Yeah, you look good.
It was a good rest.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes,
you.
Fernando. Oh, love you. Okay. All right.
So we've got a few minutes.
Oh, okay.
You wanted
Thank
to make an announcement. You have a training you're doing
In June.
June, yes.
Yeah, I am. I'm doing a training from starting June, I think it's June 4th, but it will be on my website, for a Tuesday from 6:45 to 9 here in Santa Fe for the next 4 Tuesdays until the end of June. And
so they can find information on the website, or they can contact you. We've been flashing that information for you.
oh, okay, great.
And if
Great.
anybody's missed that information, you can contact me. They're flashing mine, and mine will also roll at the end of the show. So if you're interested, we'll hook you up.
Yeah, and basically what I'm doing is it's about the SaRa, but it's also about working with the elementals and the tree spirit, and it's the beginning stages of a shamanic for a shaman training.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, let me make a couple of announcements, then we'll come back and put
Okay.
a quick wrap to this. I want to thank you for watching. You know, this is public access. You are the public, so we'd love to hear from you. Comments, questions, criticisms. You know, get involved. Shows you might want to see done here. Let me know. I'd love to, hear from you. Also, I've had people who watch the show and then have called me and come on and been a guest. So if there's something you think that you'd like to put out there for everybody to see here, reach out to me. Let me know what you want to do, and we'll talk about it. I am a spiritual counselor. I don't have a congregation. I'm not here to convert anybody. Anybody's watching this show should pick that up by now. The divine is the divine. It's bigger than the sum total of any religion, any practice, anything. So my job is to help you find your path and how to utilize your connection on that path to help you heal. Usually it's emotional, but sometimes it can be physical. So if that sounds like it might work for you, contact me. I work on a donation basis. Money's not an object. Spirit takes care of me, whether it's through you or somebody else. Spirit takes care of me. So if anything sounds like it might work for you, give me a call. I just want to end this announcement one thing. There is this store on Water Street, right off between Don Gaspar and Galisteo. It's called Namaste, which I happen to love the name. A shout out to them. We were there the other day, and she got so excited to realize it was like, I watch you on TV. Wow. So this is your shout out. It's a wonderful store. It's got statues, jewelry, all kinds of, Namaste is the acknowledgement of the divine within us, and it's an, Vedic designation. So it's all mostly about, India and that whole culture, but there are like some Buddha statues and stuff. Anyway, shout out to you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for acknowledging. So we got a couple of minutes left. Let's go last couple of minutes aftermath of the seal openings, then we get to the second and third. What happens in the second and third?
Yeah, well, the second and third, the second is about on the other side, working on the other side and bringing the higher heart together with, the physical heart on this side, bringing the higher heart together, and then bringing in the Ka bodies, merging. Once the heart is opened, the seals have been, pretty much removed. Then the Kas, the spirit, can start coming back into the person. So we work on the other side, using sound, vibration, tuning forks, using smells, the senses, using different oils for the different chakras. and really getting into the work. I mean, this was a very passive demonstration, but usually, you know, the people who are trained and the people who are receiving, there's more of an interaction that takes place.
Is there a normal time frame from the start of the process till the completion of the process?
Well, the first one is at least 2.5 hours, and so I do an intake of your genealogy. I do an intake of your ancestors just to see, you know, what's happening, if there's anything unconscious going on. Is there a pattern that is being formed from, you know, your great-grandmother to, you know, you, that kind of thing. And then, you know, then working with the client on the table to facilitate whatever needs to, you know, be let go, like Fernando was saying, you know, what...
I mean, do we become enlightened in a week, a month? How long is it, you know? What is to get to that destination, what would the normal time frame be?
Well, I mean, altogether, I would say, you know, the 3 sessions, we're talking 2, 4, 6, at least 8 to 12 hours.
Okay.
Of time.
So it depends on how rapidly somebody wants to go through the process.
Absolutely, and their willingness.
So they could do it in a week, or they could do it in a month, or whatever it takes.
They could do it in a week or a month, but usually you want to have a week between, because as what happens is when the seal gets opened, there's all this held trauma, and so it has to come out, you know, but it comes out like this really quickly. So you don't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to thank you.
And I want to thank you.
That's so great that you had me on today. Thank you so much, Reverend Phil.
It's my pleasure.
I really appreciate it. And thank you, the community college here of Santa Fe. It's been really a joy to work with everyone here, and I'm just very grateful.
We thank you. We thank Fernando. And want to thank you all for watching. This is Words of the Prophets. We're here every week. Whatever day you're watching us on, we're here that same day next week. So tune us in. You know, work on your oneness, work on your growth, work on your connectiveness to everybody else, and watch the world around you change. Love and light to you all. Blessings. Bye. I'm Reverend Phil, and I've been your host for Words of the Prophets. Thank you for tuning in. Please join me again next week, same time, same channel, for more Words of the Prophets.